Joining us, former Deputy Assistant Attorney General Tom Dupree. So, Tom, let's go right to that. I mean, we have the two cases, but I want to specifically talk about Wisconsin first, and that is, was there a case that stands up in a court of law to arrest Hannah Dugan? Was it showboating, like the Milwaukee mayor says, Cavalier Johnson calling it showboating, or was it a case that no one is above the law, as Bondi says, and this was justified?
I don't see this as a case of showboating. We've heard from the Attorney General and we heard from the federal agents who were on the scene that this judge allegedly engaged in a pretty disturbing course of conduct. She obviously did not want the federal agents to execute the warrant and take this person into federal custody. And again, according to the allegations, are very serious, is that she basically escorted him out through a secret exit and did everything she could to hustle him out of the courthouse in security. And that ended up in, as the Attorney General reported, a pretty extraordinary scene outside the courthouse when the federal agents literally had to chase the guy down the street as he was running away from them. It's not exactly judicious behavior by the judge.
And put your deputy AG hat back on for a moment, if you will. And if I were bringing to you a case of a judge and his wife that were harboring an alleged Tren de Aragua gang member that was allowed access to guns and could show you the tattoos, the evidence that ties him to the gang, as well as the evidence that shows that he was residing in this casita on the Cano's property, would you see that as justified to go out and arrest him?
Well, I would. Look, I mean, the fact is here too, you have what is allegedly just extreme, extraordinary behavior. I mean, no one in our society should be engaging in that sort of conduct, harboring gang members, giving them assault weapons and that sort of thing. And the fact that someone is a judge or a former judge doesn't give them a pass to do this sort of conduct. So again, look, everyone is innocent until proven guilty. These are all just allegations, but based on these very serious allegations, it's hard for me to see how you could characterize this as showboating rather than simply enforcing the laws of the United States.
Hey, Tom, I want to show, I did this in the last hour, but it really struck me, Senator Amy Klobuchar, who is a former prosecutor from Hennepin County, she put this up. She says, this is not normal. The administration's arrest of a sitting judge in Wisconsin is a drastic move that threatens the rule of law. While we don't have all the details, this is a grave step and undermines our system of checks and balances. We know the details, although there are allegations yet to be played out, but it strikes me that maybe some Democrats may be missing the point of the fundamentals of the rule of law.
Well, I think what the senator is missing here is that this is not a situation in which these judges were arrested for performing their judicial duties, right? This is not a case where the judges rendered some decision that the administration didn't like and the administration said, let's address these judges. Instead, what these judges did is what, if any other member of society did, would be viewed in most quarters as a criminal offense. In other words, they were not acting in their capacity as judges, hearing cases, deciding cases, administering the law. They were in one instance escorting, trying to hustle someone out to evade federal arrest. In the other situation, they were allegedly harboring gang members and giving them weapons. So again, I don't really see this as a dire threat to the separation of powers because these judges are not being penalized for exercising their proper judicial functions.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable once you dig a little bit into the case out of New Mexico and you read the criminal complaint about this guy, Christian Ortega Lopez, and on the property of the Canos. They say the defendant was introduced to Nancy Cano's daughter, April, who possessed a large number of firearms. The defendant advised that April allowed him to hold and sometimes shoot various firearms. Then it goes on to say the defendant advised he knew it was illegal for him to possess firearms. This judge and wife are looking at quite significant charges, perhaps more so than even in the case of Hannah Dugan.
Look, it's from my perspective, it is inexplicable how these things could have happened, because you would think of all people, judges are the ones that we look to enforce the rule of law, to understand what is legal and illegal in our society. But again, based on the allegations, it sounds like both of these judges, both in Wisconsin and Milwaukee, knew that what they were doing was not right under the law, was violating federal law, was frustrating federal law, obstructing federal law, and yet they went ahead and did it anyways.
So when Judge Cano resigned, the state judicial standard judicial commission in New Mexico petitioned their state's Supreme Court to remove Cano for harboring an illegal alien that was suspected of being a TDA gang member. Then the Supreme Court in New Mexico concurred with the commission and barred him for life. What do you see as the future in the case of the Wisconsin judge, Hannah Dugan, and her chances of continuing to serve on the bench?
Well, I mean, to say the least, there's been a serious shadow cast over her ability to continue to serve in light of this conduct. And I think we will see as the judicial process moves forward, as I said earlier, everyone is entitled to the presumption of innocence. And it is entirely possible that she will come forward with evidence explaining why what she thought she was doing was lawful, why she didn't have any intent to act in a criminal way by harboring illegal aliens or by obstructing a federal proceeding. And ultimately, if this case moves ahead, it will be submitted to a jury, which will decide whether or not she actually intended to and did in fact violate the federal criminal laws of the United States.
So in the case of the Wisconsin case, the illegal alien from Mexico, Eduardo Flores Ruiz, is accused of pretty significant domestic violence and strangulation. Is it lost on anyone in this case that Judge Dugan just shepherded this illegal migrant out the back door with the victim's family in the court right in front of them?
And Griff, that is what makes this so peculiar from my perspective. In other words, that this individual that she was doing her utmost, allegedly violating federal law to protect, is someone who does not seem to be deserving of sympathy. He's accused of very serious offensive battery, domestic violence. You have the actual victims in the courtroom. And I understand this judge is not a fan of the Trump administration's immigration enforcement policy, but to exercise her sympathy, going so far as to allegedly break federal law in favor of an individual like this, who by virtually all accounts poses a serious danger, is inexplicable to my mind.
And Tom, lastly, before I run out of time, just switching quick gears, a story that didn't get a lot of attention in the media, but the DOJ announced that they had arrested a TDA high-ranking gang member, indicted him. He was arrested in Colombia, and he's being extradited back to the U.S. to face charges. And it's the first of terrorism charges to be brought against a TDA gang member. Remember, this all goes back to the administration labeling them foreign terrorist organization. What's your reaction to that?
My reaction is the administration is upping the ante. Certainly there's not a lot of precedent for charging people who have gang connections under terrorism statutes. Not to say that that's not something they can prove under the law, but what it does reflect is that the administration is very serious about pursuing the most serious possible charges against these individuals, which come, of course, with very serious penalties under federal law for conviction.
It's going to be an important case to follow and see where it goes. Tom Dupree, thank you for your insight and time. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, you too.
Hey, it's Will Kane. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News channel on YouTube. It's the best way to get our latest interviews and highlights. And click to subscribe to the Will Kane podcast for full episodes right now.